Thank you. Everybody ready? Okay, welcome everybody to school committee meeting Tuesday, November 28th, 2023. Before you have an agenda, may I have an approval?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Is that me making that noise? I
That's
think
me.
Oh, it's you. Okay. Public comment. Seeing no public.
Hold on 1 second. I know there was a person who wanted to speak to it. Is Charlie there?
On that agenda item.
On the agenda item, okay. Thank you. Feels
Okay,
All right.
that's all right. Superintendent's report.
Yes, we will start with enrollment. We currently have this month, and I know it's a little bit late, we would have normally done an earlier enrollment report, but where we are right now is 1,694 students. This is up from 5 students in October. And the distribution is, we've seen a little bit of growth at the elementary school, the intermediate school, and actually quite a few at the middle school. So 3 at the elementary school, 2 at NIS, and 6 at the middle school at Cyrus Pierce. But we've lost 6 students at the high school. So it evens out to 5 students that we have gained. So. Moving on, I wanted to share a little bit about my own experience at the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents and Massachusetts Association of School Committees joint conference. And I'm going to invite the rest of you also to speak to that so that we can hear, and the public can certainly hear what you experienced at your time at the conference. So earlier this month, we had this wonderful opportunity to attend this conference in Hyannis, and several of us were there, which is great. The conference is a 3-day conference. Chantal, you were able to attend with me for 3 days, and then we had Pauline Proch, Tim Lepre, and Esmeralda Martinez that were able to attend on the last day, Friday. I attended some great sessions all across, and there were also some excellent keynote speakers as well. So I'll just mention the name of the sessions that I attended so that people are aware of what kind of things were being offered. I attended a session about the improvements and adjustments to the MCAS, which I think is important in some cases. There was discussion around the new civics MCAS and then changing the format of the science MCAS to have it be a little bit more hands-on. So I'm not sure how that's going to look in an MCAS test, but there also is discussion about reducing the writing. So essays might be reduced, which I think will be an appreciation by all students who have to do double essays right now. I also attended a conference or a session on implementing a new high-quality literacy curriculum. That was very interesting, and learning how a certain district made a big shift in their literacy curriculum and found it to be incredibly advantageous, and they saw their literacy scores go up quite a bit. Another one that I attended was Know the Science for School Violence Prevention, and this was about Sandy Hook Promise, which is an organization to stop school violence by starting in the schools themselves and having students connect with each other. So much like the Project 351, which we've heard about with student-run activities and student-run groups, that is what this prevention entails. Having promise clubs and promise organizations to have students feel more connected, in which case then they would, hopefully we wouldn't see some of the same issues around situations with school shootings that often are from either students themselves, current students, or former students. And so the hope is that by building that community, people would feel more connected to their school. A couple of other sessions that I thought were interesting, equity work in partnership with the community, where a district talked about how they had a strong connection to their community and how they built equity practices by also incorporating them into the community. Hiring school staff in a competitive environment was another fascinating one, and how school staff across the nation it's a struggle. And some of the ideas that were floated were around some flexible scheduling, opportunities to remote in when possible. Perhaps they weren't necessarily teacher positions. You can't necessarily remote in as a teacher, but certainly it was interesting to hear different districts' ideas of how to promote and have stronger hiring practices. I also attended Equity in Action, the district's journey to becoming anti-racist, which I thought was really interesting and kind of sparked my my interest around potentially looking at an equity audit in Nantucket, which I think would be an important piece that we need to head into around how our students are really being equitably educated. And the last conference, small session that I attended was called Dealing with the Most Difficult People During School Committee Meetings. So it was quite interesting. And Dr. Lepper and I sat and listened to a very, very funny presentation by Glenn Kuchar, who is yes, he is. It was quite interesting. I did hear from Esmeralda, who is not with us today, and she said she wanted to share that the keynote speaker around artificial intelligence was particularly the chat GPT-4 was most impactful for her. She thought it was really interesting and is certainly concerned about how it's being used in our schools, and hopefully we'll find some ways to incorporate using it as a tool. So that was her most impactful moment. So I turn it over then to school committee members to share what they experienced and learned from the conference.
Okay. I attended 7 sessions in the first 2 days, and my final day was an 8-hour training session locked in our room with about 40 people. So I feel very prepared to be a school committee member now. But we've been having a lot of conversations about getting the diversity, equity, and inclusion group going. So I wanted to learn about other districts and what work they've been doing. So I attended first the Let's Get Real session. That was really about weaving equity work into your curriculum and into your school district, into the greater community. And then building upon that, launched into another session, Building Bridges for Equity. It's exactly what it sounds like. It was really a focus on calling people in versus calling people out, and how to deal with school districts who don't necessarily understand that equity is more than just I'm Black and you're white and we're equal. You know, it's going a lot deeper into the conversation and talking about people with different learning abilities and how to ensure that we're creating a school system that is representative and supportive of all of our, not just our students, but also our staff. Then I went into a session, Equity Through Social and Emotional Learning. That is my 5 pages of questions that I wrote down. Then embedding equity in district community. And then from equity audit to strategic planning was a great session that I attended. I believe you were in the other session, and then I was in this one at the same time. So it was kind of nice to walk out of that and figure out where to go from there, which was crucial. And the keynote speaker on Thursday, Dr. Jackson, was fabulous. She was funny. She made difficult conversations so easy to have. Definitely left me wondering about my own biases and how to overcome those or recognize those. So it was a really cool conference. I think of all the conferences, and if you know me personally, I'm always at a conference. I think of all the conferences I've had to attend over the last, I'd say 3 years, this was probably the most enjoyable and certainly the most informative one that I've been to. So it was really neat being in a room with superintendents and other school committee members. And I have to say that I left that conference feeling so fortunate that we have this school district that we have, because we don't deal with half the problems that people want to deal with, you know. So I'm so grateful for this community, for having difficult conversations in a civil way. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So. It's wonderful.
If I may, through the chair, just to add on to Chantal's report about the keynote speaker, Dr. Jackson. She is a force of nature, and I think it is our, at least mine and Chantal, and most likely Esmeralda's as well, is our mission to get her here, because she is amazing. And she also does all of the Mass Ready work that I've been doing. She's one of the facilitators. Absolutely amazing. So anyway, continue, please.
Great. Well, I'm sorry I didn't get the note in time for me to prepare, so I don't have the list of the classes that I attended. I was there for one day. This is my ninth conference that I've attended. And for me, it's always just nice just to get with other people and other people who are other school committee members or superintendents and really network and hear about what's going on. Tim, Esmeralda, and I all went to the Division 7, which is our district school committee level. So we got to meet all of the other close by neighbors, except for the vineyard. They weren't there. But it was good because they were really interested in listening about some of the things that we're doing and some of the struggles that we have. And I think we're going to do meetings around the community. So they've opted to come here in August. I don't know why, but we did. I attended an artificial intelligence, how that is impacting classroom instruction and homework. And then I also, my afternoon session was around the creativity of having classroom credit outside of the school hours. So there is a community that's been funded by a grant, and students can go into different schools because they're close by. But they're working with certified teachers, but also skilled laborers and individuals from the workforce. So kids are getting credit on plumbing and electricity, and it was fascinating to me. And I think it's something that we could definitely look into here. But it's always good just to be around with your peers and have some time off island to not be necessarily just sitting at a table like this. So,
I know.
and that's my update. All right.
I have a few more to add. Just a thank you to NES and NIS as they both hosted community reader days on Monday and Tuesday last week before the Thanksgiving break. It's always such a special time for students and for readers, and I think students get really excited to have visitors in their classroom reading. I did not participate this year, but I remember last year fondly and had the opportunity to read in Spanish, which was a little tough for me, but I did it. So that was nice. Just a thank you also to the Harvey Foundation and the Seagull for hosting the second annual fall gathering. We had a great time. There were a lot of great donations because that is part of the purpose of it is to make sure we're giving back to the community. Mr. Clooney delivered about 8 boxes of food. There were over $300 in cash donations to the Nantucket Food, Fuel, and Rental Assistance Organization, and numerous other individual donations, which we could not necessarily count because the expectation was in order to participate in a raffle, you had to make a donation, and some people opted to do that through a QR code. So I don't have a record necessarily of how many people did that. But certainly plenty. So I hope that that organization feels happy with the. Hopefully, we've put a little bit of a dent into the holiday season with that. We also celebrated the end of the peer observation tournament, which happened prior to that, where different groups and teams of educators were visiting other educators' classrooms, both in their own school but also in different schools. And there was a prize for the team with the most observations, which was great. I think the team name was the Boa Constrictors, and they were from the middle school. But one of the interesting things I heard today in a conversation was how surprising it is for middle school teachers or for high school teachers to get into the younger grades and watch what happens in a kindergarten class, because the only time that they would have necessarily had that experience was either as a student themselves or potentially as a parent, being able to see what happens in a lower grade and thinking, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine what kind of a how emotionally drained the teachers are at the end. So I think that was an eye-opening experience and certainly worthwhile for them. So I do hope that we will have more peer observation tournaments and opportunities for teachers to see each other in action, not just in their own school, but in other schools too. It's a stronger understanding and I think a meaningful experience for everybody. So, and that's all I got.
Thank you. All right, moving on to presentations and discussions of issues. We'd like to invite Barbara Cohen up here, please, who's our Director of English Learner Education.
Thank you.
Hi, Barbara.
Thank you. So this is our update for this year. To start off, I thought we would go over some acronyms and abbreviations, because there are so many in this field. So EL is English learner. We're at a funny angle here. So EL is English learner. ELL is English language learner.
Can I just ask you to turn the
Microphone.
around for the TV? Thank you.
Sure. So they're used interchangeably. English learner, ELL. MLL is multilingual language learner. And that is a little bit different because that can include students who are native English speakers who are studying a foreign language. So and some of our English learners who have more than two languages. As well. LEP, Limited English Proficient, that is a designation that's used by the state when they're talking about English learners. FEL is a former English language learner, someone who has exited services. FLNE is first language, not English, and that's an very interesting designation for our district that we're going to talk about tonight. SLIFE is students with limited or interrupted formal education, and ELSWD are English learners, students with disabilities. So they are duly identified for services. So in our department, I am the new director this year, my first year, so this is, I'm really getting acclimated. I have two ESPs working for me. Gabby Burns is in the central office, and Catherine Delgado, and this is the district translator. She's housed at the high school, but she works under the EL department. And we do want to make sure that all the district administrators know that she exists, because she is our district translator. At NES, we have 5 full-time ESL teachers, same as last year. NIS, we have 4 full-time ESL teachers. That's 1 more from last year. CPS, 2 full-time ESL teachers. The high school here, we have 3 full-time teachers, and that's up 1 from last year. And then we have Catherine Norton, who is our SEI coach. She, again, similar to Catherine, she's housed at the high school. That's where her office is and where she's predominantly working. But she does fall under the EL department. Our student population, my number is different than the one that you were just quoted, and I'm not sure why that is. I got this off Aspen. But so we have 1,762 active students, and out of those we have 328 active ELL students. So that's 18.62% of our population who are English learners or designated by the state as LEP, Limited English Proficient. The interesting thing to note, though, is in our district, 859 students, that's like half of our student body, more than half, are first language, not English. And the part of that that is really important to note is that 530 students, or 30% of our population, requires translation services or interpretation. So this can be students who are former English learners that in their household the families don't speak English. It can also be students who never qualified for services, but they came into district and they have a language other than English at home. It's also impactful when you consider the cultural piece, that these are students who are crossing cultures from home to school and back home again. So there are some significant, some impacts there with that data. So again, here's a graphic image of our English learners and our first language, not English students. So the number of first language, not English students per total school population, and the need for translation services. So that first bar is the district, the total district population, all of our students. Limited English Proficient or active English learners is 328. The FLNE is 860, and interpretation needed is 530. So it's very important to know. And how we perform or stand, or our demographic compared to the state, we are well over first language, not English. We're almost double the state average. English language learners, about there, a little bit more. Low income, similar to the state, just a little bit under. Students with disabilities, similar to the state, a little bit under. And high needs, also similar to the state, but a little bit over. High needs includes these same designations with the addition of students who might be involved with social services in some capacity. And our English language learners by school, our population, this is in some ways predictable that at NES we have the most English learners because students come to school and if they're coming from a home that doesn't have English as their home language, they're coming to learn English. NIS, it gets a little bit lower. CPS, we see the smallest percentage or number of L's in that school. And then it rises a little bit in high school. And that's been interesting to note because in high school we seem to get more new enrollees who are newcomers, which has been very impactful on the high school and on our teaching staff and on our curriculum because we have students who are coming to the high school with no English language skills yet, and some of these students may or may not be limited or have interrupted schooling, formal schooling. And that is, we're seeing that. And it's impactful. So our students with disabilities, students who are both identified as English learners and special needs. Total number of students in the district on IEPs are 326, and we have 66 English learners who are duly identified. That means that they're receiving services both from special needs providers and they're in ESL, active ESL services. So that can be a real draw on the curriculum and being pulled out of the classroom. And then again by school. NES has 23, NIS has 29, CPS 9, and the high school 3. And then we have 2 students who are postgraduate who will be exiting out of services this year. So it's fascinating, the demographic in this district. We are so diverse. There's between 14 and 17 home languages, different home languages. The predominant one, Spanish, the second, Portuguese, followed by Russian and Bulgarian. Although, as we were saying, Beth and I were talking today, Bulgarian students may not be English language learners. They may not be in services, in which case then the next group is Lithuanian, which surprised me. Yeah, so it's really very diverse. So the English language proficiency levels go on the WIDA scale from 1 to 6. 1 means a student is a newcomer and they have no English, and 6 is native speaker proficiency. For a student, so we have level 1, 2, 3, 4, and for a student to exit services, currently the state designation is a 4.2 in their composite score and a 3.9 in literacy. And they have to have that combination to exit services. And then 5 is bridging and 6 is native speaker. So if you think about that, when a student exits services, when they are designated able to exit services with a 4.2 and a 3.9, they're not that close to native speaker proficiency. So that indicates a real need for a strong sheltered English immersion program in our content classrooms so that we're continuing to develop their language skills and give them those opportunities. So the proficiency level of current English learners in the district, we have a lot of entering, 126. That would be a combination, again, of especially the elementary, the lower elementaries, and again at high school. Level 2, level 3, and then we have quite a lot of expanding students at a level 4, which is good. That means, nearing exiting criteria. So it's kind of the number of entering students is a challenge because depending on where they are. In the elementary school classroom, it's a little bit more given towards language development and children learn in a very natural way. But for the entering students that we get at the high school, it's a challenge because they have a very limited amount of time to develop proficiency and to meet all the requirements for graduation in English. So here's proficiency level by school, different pie chart. You can see that NES, again, they have the most entering students, much more than NIS. And CPS and the high school, again, the high school, you see that rise in entering students again. It's also important to note that the demands of the curriculum, the way the demands of the curriculum grow, it gets more challenging. So when we have newcomer students who come into elementary school, kindergarten, first grade, they progress pretty nicely. The demands aren't so great, and they can generally get up to speed with their cohort. But it's, again, that challenge is when the older they because the demands of the curriculum are so much greater, given their language proficiency. So some highlights in our EL department this year, our English learner department. There are 5 teachers who are training for Orton Gillingham. Orton Gillingham is an approach, a philosophy towards teaching reading to dyslexic students. And while our ESL teachers won't be working specifically with dyslexic students, Orton Gillingham gives them a really great depth of knowledge on the English language and how, and a lot of tools and strategies for teaching reading. I also believe that it also helps them to understand better what a student might be struggling with. They have more tools to sort of identify where the struggle is coming from. So we have 5 teachers doing that. We have 2 newcomer classes at CPS and NHS for science and math. And so again, those are for our students who are coming in with really low proficiency levels, so they're between a level 1.0 and 1.9. So they go into these classes, and it's the content of math and science with a strong language overlay to develop their language skills in that content area. So these classes might move slightly slower, but it's kind of a less is more philosophy, and it's working beautifully at these schools. Our MLPAC, which is our Parent Advisory Council, is off to a nice start this year. We've had really good attendance. We've had, I would say, 20 to 30, up to 35 people each meeting so far. So we're hoping to keep that up. I think we got off to a really good start because we were giving away decommissioned Chromebooks. And that brought in a lot of parents, but then we sort of tried to rope them in with some good food and some, we played music the first night. We had the first time was just social and Chromebooks. And then the second time we talked to them about assessments and the need to attendance, the need to be at school. We'll have a meeting next week. We're going to have 2 people from the Whaling Museum talking about their outreach programs and things that they have to offer families here. And we're going to speak to them about the access test, which is the state mandated test for English language proficiency that's coming up right after we come back from the holidays, and the need to be back after the holidays and promptly for the testing. So that's off to a nice start. We have COP as a community of practice that is a collaboration between DESE, Department of Education, and AIR, which is a research institute. And they have come together to discuss how to meet the needs of our SLIFE students across the state. SLIFE being the students who have limited or interrupted formal education. So this is it's a big conundrum in many, many districts because we have students coming to us who not only don't speak the language, but now they're two or more grade levels below. So it's a real difficult challenge for districts. So Community of Practice, they've paired together and they've created this collaboration to visit districts and to share best practices. What's working for you? What's your district? What's your demographic? How are you managing this? How are you approaching it? So we have been invited, because we had 2 teachers, one from the middle school, I think it was Kaylani and Catherine, participated in this last year. So they sort of brought the Nantucket to the community of practice, and we've been invited to be a host district this year. So we were invited to do that in November, and it felt like there was too much going on, and I'm very new, so I would be sort of facilitating it and handing it off and hearing about it. So I suggested we wait until May. So now that's the plan, is that we will be virtual hosts in May and just share what we've done, what our challenges are, what our successes are, what our questions are, and it'll be virtually done, so there'll be a lot of people theoretically joining in. And then the last thing is the Massachusetts Seal of Biliteracy. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the DESE has started a program where students can earn a Seal of Biliteracy attached to their transcript or their diplomas. And it's a statement that says you are biliterate in English and your home language, whatever that may be. There's different criteria that students have to meet to earn that, taking a test or passing an AP class in some districts, demonstrating that they are literate in a second language. So we were approached by the director of the Bulgarian school, and she would like to join with us, partner with us to implement the seal. And I think it's a great segue for us doing this for all of our students. We could have potentially lots of Spanish and Portuguese speakers earning it. We could have native-speaking English kids, American students earning it, who can demonstrate proficiency in Spanish, for example, if they go up through the ranks, or if they have a home language. There's many families who have really strong home language skills, and they might want their student to earn that in another language. And the state has identified different assessments and criteria by which they can demonstrate that literacy, so it doesn't have to be a class offered in the school that we can award it, as long as we meet the state criteria. So that's it. That's the EL department highlights. Any questions?
Chantel, would you like to go first?
Yes, please. You mentioned that in the high school, the levels of students that aren't, like in the level 1 to 1.9 area, that those are impactful. Can you elaborate on that?
So when we have students who come into the school who don't speak English, Massachusetts is an English-only state. Our program is SEI, which is Sheltered English Instruction or Immersion, which means when a student comes in, from the moment they walk into the school, we are charged with teaching them English and getting up to speed to graduate and meeting their graduation requirements in English. We are not a bilingual school or district. We don't have those programs in place, and even if we did, you can't address all of the languages that we have. We have between 14 and 17 languages. So we are an English-only program school. So it's impactful that when they come in, so SEI would have them interspersed with native-speaking students in classrooms where the teachers are well-versed in SEI strategies to build the language and to develop language. But when we have these numbers that are fairly, significant enough to have their own class, we have created separate classes for math and science. And my vision is that would be just a one-year class for those students who are in levels 1 to 1.9, and then they segue into SEI courses. So, I hope that answers your question. It's difficult for teachers to meet their needs when you have a class of 20 students and you have 5 who don't understand the language of what you're doing. It's very hard to meet those needs. So for those very low students, low language level students, we have created this classes in math and science, this curriculum. And I believe here at the high school there's one in social studies too, but I've been mostly focused on the science and math this year, especially the science. That's what we're trying to grow because there's the MCAS requirement that starts in 5th grade.
Thank you.
Nora?
I'm curious how the translation services are being delivered, given
Yeah.
I know it's difficult and
Yeah.
challenging.
Well, so we have Catherine Delgado, who is our district translator, and she manages our translation needs in real time here in the school for Spanish. We have a program that teachers can call in if there's another language, and you can have someone on the phone doing the translation.
Oh, nice.
Interpretation, written translations depends on the language, but Catherine or we have the capacity to do some translations with different software programs. But again, it's an important piece, and it's fascinating again with that first language non-English that we have so many families who have requested it.
Right. Thank you.
No questions.
Every year when we have these presentations, it always floors me on just how much we have and how much we're offering and how much we do, yet it always feels like we never really have enough resources.
Yeah.
66% of our students,
Yeah.
English is not their first language, is
It's amazing.
It is amazing. And I always use the number 12. I have done for the last year or two of languages, but to hear it's 14 to 17 languages spoken.
Yeah, we just actually have a student who registered very recently this month who she's from Guatemala and she speaks indigenous Mayan language. Her Spanish is even small, so it's limited. So it's fascinating
Yeah.
how we meet those needs, right?
Right.
I'm sure her Spanish will grow pretty quickly, She has some Spanish, and there's a lot of Spanish in the building, but it really presented us with a conundrum when she registered, because it was like, we don't have, how can we meet those needs? So also with our students who have limited or interrupted formal education, it's a conundrum about how to screen them, to decide if they are 2 grade levels below or 1 grade level below. And then again, when you find out that they are, what happens next?
Mhm.
We still have the programming that we have, so we have to, carry on in the ways that we are. But Catherine was able to, communicate enough with her, and my ESPs, Catherine and Gabby, were wonderful because they helped her to find her bus route. They took her to the community place to get sweaters and a coat, because she didn't have any of that. And so she came to us really like sometimes our students do with some needs that need to be met by the community. So Catherine and Gabby were instrumental in getting her acclimated and getting her sort of in the routine of school, and she quickly had a Spanish current.
Nice.
So she's doing well.
Good.
That's my understanding.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
fascinating.
Any other
I'm
comments?
sorry, I just thought about something. Are the ESL classes still 2 blocks?
That's a great question, thank you. ESL classes are 2 blocks depending on the student's language level. So if you're level 1 and a level 2, you have 2 blocks of ESL. Once you reach the level 3 and 4, you just have 1 block.
And then, so you have 2 blocks of ESL, 1 block of science with people that don't speak English as their first language. And then another class of math, same way as the science class. So
That's-
only
it's
2
possible.
classes with people that's...
A level 2
like-
student would not have that much. A level
Right.
2 student would only have 2 blocks of ESL. But a level 1 student who comes to us as a newcomer with no English would have, yes, supported that level of supported math, science, and 2 blocks of ESL.
Okay. All right, thank
Yeah, and
you.
it's also important to remember also, we don't often know the student's reading level in their home language. So it's not, we're trying to really move away from the idea of, just give them translations. We don't know how they can digest the
Right.
translations we're giving them. We really need to begin English instruction from the moment they walk in the building. And they have a limited time offer to become proficient in English. So.
Well, thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. All right, Martin, you are up next.
Do you need this?
Good evening. We're coming rather late this year with the preliminary budget forecast for FY25, but the process has been pushed back a little, so we're presenting in January, so we had more time to look at the budget, which is always helpful for us when we try to look at the needs of the district and see where we are with hiring, with new employees, so we know where we stand, especially with payroll, because that's our major expense, obviously. And as you see, our budget currently stands at $37,326,987, and the projected increase just to move that budget forward in fiscal year 25 is going to be $2,249,000. So of this, $2,049,000 are obviously contractual obligations. That reflects the recent contractual agreement with the teachers union. That reflects other agreements with all the other unions we have, as well as projected increases for administration and non-union employees. It's become a big number. It used to be in the 600-700s, but like we've grown as a district. We've obviously added the intermediate school in the past 6-7 years. So those are the numbers that we have today. The $200,000 projected increase on the operating side is we intend to add to tuitions because we are seeing an increased cost of tuitions They raised by 14% this year, and there is an anticipated increase next year as well. So we have to project. We do have the circuit breaker that we use as well to help the operating budget, but we feel that we'll be better positioned if we increase that line item in our budget. So that's where we stand with the preliminary budget forecast as of today.
Thank you. Any questions for Martin?
Thank you, Martin.
I will go forward with the other two documents, which you'll see on the other side. We have two things to share with you. One is the budget development calendar. Normally, we present this much earlier, but interestingly enough, it came to our minds that we needed to get this done. This document was lost in the cyber attack, so we had to recreate it. So that's partially the reason why. But we're very glad to have a little extra time. Budget season is always challenging for us when we're being asked in October to plan for the next school year when we have only been in place for a month or a month and a half. And so having a little extra time has given us opportunity to really dig in and understand what our needs are. So this is a pretty straightforward calendar. November, we approved the revised budget calendar, which is what we're asking for today, and then we adopt the budget directives, which I will be sharing with you in a minute. November, December is a lot of determining individual needs. It's school needs, system-wide department needs and priorities, and having conversations around with school council and input from staff. In December is when we begin discussing budget development. This says school committee workshop, but I don't think we'll be meeting that. We'll be heading directly into budget presentations. And then we're forecasting budget needs based on current programming and contractual obligations, which we shared a little bit today. Also in December, we will be talking about individual budgets presentations, so you'll see those and have those in December or January. Mostly January because, again, we have a little more time, which is we're very thankful for.
Mm-hmm.
So, and all of this is also because of the move of town meeting to May instead of April. That helps us to have more time, so that's been a real advantage. Moving on to January 9th, we do have the town administration coming, and they will do their annual general fund budget recommendations with you. So we'll have them to present. And then we will also start our actual budget presentations. The technology budget, although it says in the calendar that it's on January 9th, we are going to anticipate it and have it at December 5th school committee meeting because our tech director, Jen Erickson, is retiring at the end of December. So we want her to be able to do her own budget for next year.
Mm-hmm.
January 23rd, we continue with presentations from our schools and from our departments, and then in February we will either adopt the budget, hopefully that will be the case, and then we will head to Finance Committee to get the final approval before we go to town meeting. Meetings of note, you'll see here just general meetings and the dates there that can help us to understand. School council has been talking about the budget, and they have an upcoming meeting that probably budget will be brought to them as well, so that they're aware of what each school will be.
On these dates?
Yes,
Yeah.
on those dates. Exactly.
And we can attend those, can't we?
I believe so. I don't think we can't. I mean, school council meetings are posted open meetings. So.
Right.
And then I'll direct you to the next page, which is the budget directives for this year. So pretty straightforward. I recommend that the 2024-2025 budget needs that are linked to the district and school goals. All of our reason for requesting certain parts of our budget are related to what we have planned in our strategic plan, in our district improvement plan, and our school improvement plans. Justification of the building and system-wide budgets for 2024-2025. Those are based on projected enrollments and curricular needs. So we're always looking at our numbers, and we're looking at what the needs are of our students, and that determines our request for funding. For 2024-2025, all projected staff increases and newly recommended programs shall be offset by existing staff and programs unless the anticipated appropriation goes beyond what is needed to fund collective bargaining agreements. We traditionally ask school and district administrators and staff to identify essential services for students. continue to support programs that sustain physical, social, and emotional development of our children, especially considering those long-term effects presented by the pandemic. We're going to see that as a budget directive for several years to come. It's going to take some time before we can remove that, but it's still very, very important. Certainly focus on professional development that supports equity and access for all students and creates a stronger inclusivity for our diverse student body. We want to make sure we're tapping revenue streams other than our operating budget, federal and state grant opportunities, and there are some great local grant opportunities as well that are coming up that we are going to tap into. Developing all of our budgets to reflect actual expenditures more closely in the last 3 years and to continue to monitor line item transfers. We want to make sure we're budgeting utility expenses carefully to reflect actual expenditures more closely in the last 3 years. We know last year we saw quite a hike in costs for our utilities, so we'll keep track of that and make sure that we have the appropriate budget lines that are available for increases. Continuing to monitor our food service and Nantucket Community School finances to make sure that we are reducing expenditures and raising revenues for them. We also continue budget development discussions with town officials, finance committee, and the select board through our ad hoc budget work group. We have not seen a need for that. You will notice, and having seen from our preliminary budget, we won't be asking for many additions based on this very large rollover that we are bringing. So for that reason, we are going to see kind of status quo, things kind of staying status quo this year. So we felt that it may not be needed to bring in the ad hoc budget work group, and the town has agreed. But again, if you see things differently, we can certainly do that. And the district will be proactive in promoting support for its 24-25 budget through the media, public forums, and other community meetings. So those are the budget directives, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. And Martin's too.
Questions? No? Okay.
No.
Good.
All right.
You're next, Martin.
So the
Students' accounts.
student activity, this is the second year in a row we had a audit of the student activity accounts. As you recall, I've shared that due to the pandemic, we skipped a audit which is supposed to be every 3 years. So the auditors decided to do a back-to-back years to see what the issues may be. Last year, the audit contained some of the findings that we have this year still, and some other ones that we've cleared since. The current setup entering FY24 was we had a checking account in which we had certain limits for the schools, and then we had the agency account where all deposits go, and we go to the agency account for larger expenses that run through the warrant. After several conversations with the auditors, the town finance department, we decided that the checking account creates a burden for the town when they have to issue 1099s for vendors. What that means is it's difficult for them if an expense doesn't run through Munis to run a report and figure out how much money have been expended with vendors. So instead of chasing that, we decided to move everything go through the agency account, which would require the use of obviously of the warrant schedule. So that creates some inconveniences. I have to admit it is by nature, we as a governmental entity are inefficient because we operate on a delayed payment schedule, and that creates issues for certain vendors, especially more so for local vendors or smaller companies that rely on regular cash flow. So with that understanding that we do have alternative ways to make reservations, for instance, for hotels and things, in the form of a district credit card that we have been given as a town department. So we co-share in a limit that's for the whole town, and that was one of the benefits of having a checking account at the high school that had associated debit card that was used to make these reservations. So that being said, again, I think it's going to take some adjustment. We've already removed the checking accounts. I believe all checking accounts right now are zeroed out. Everything's moved. It creates more of a planning process for every school much like we do with the operating budget. You have to forecast the expense, obviously create a purchase order, and then pay the vendor as soon as possible through the warrant. So far, I haven't heard anything in the form of a negative feedback, but we are approaching one of our biggest fundraisers, which is December Delight, so we'll see how that goes, and then we'll go from there. That's as far as the structure of the student activity accounts. The audit itself has several topics that kind of are repetitive for every school. The reconciliation part, particularly, I questioned with the auditors because this year, as you know, we were hit by a cyber attack, which created a huge problem for us reconciling the accounts. We were reconciled as of December 31st, then we got hit on February 1st, and we didn't have access to the town share folder where we reconcile almost until the last week of April. So obviously that created delays. The auditors claim we should do this monthly, and we will going forward. Everybody's been has worked hard around the situation with the cyber attack. So we were reconciled. I just have to point out when the auditors were here, everything was reconciled to the penny. It's just they would like to see that as a monthly process more so than a yearly one before we are audited. The other part of the audit speaks about the schedule of the audits. So the external auditors come and audit the student activity accounts on a 3-year schedule, but they would love to have internal audits in the years when they are not here, and those can be carried out either by the treasurer of the town or the finance director of the town. We'll have to work a schedule with the finance department and see who can come and audit them yearly for us. Other things that they of note here are the auditors are claiming that we have accumulated through the years for various reasons large fund balances in some schools, and they are not seeing enough expenses being applied. So they're suggesting, for instance, in the middle school, high school, there is yearbooks that are being done yearly. Don't fundraise for that or reduce the cost. Maybe just to make sure that we start drawing down on the balances that are accumulated in some of the school accounts. The biggest by far is the high school, obviously, and we have some graduating classes there that graduate with substantial amounts. By law, we have to distribute these amounts back to the students up to 3 months. We usually use about 3 months after graduation, because after that the kids are off to colleges, and it's very difficult to communicate and make that transfer. The auditors are saying that in some examples that these balances are rather large, so they suggested conversations, whether it's us talking with the students or the students deciding that they can dedicate some of these funds to either future classes or future programs. We don't obviously need them to supplement in any way our operating budget, but it would be great if any of those classes consider any kind of initiative or even I don't know, any kind of use that they can be given back to the school or upcoming students that might not be as fortunate in their fundraising. So those are the main things. We are going to work through all this, and this is a rather large document, 10 pages. I would love to have this be a 4-page or 5-page audit. So we'll work together with the schools and with the finance department of the town to make sure that next time the audit goes even better. So thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you, Martin.
Any questions, comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to the field house renovation, and I believe Chip Clooney is going to join us, Director of Facilities.
Good evening,
Hey,
everyone.
Chip.
I'm the feel-good story tonight, I think. You guys all in your packet have the pictures of the field house and the drawings. There's a group of volunteers headed by Paul Cronin who are interested in renovating the field house. So for those of you who aren't quite sure what I'm talking about, it's the house that's adjacent to the football field. And on that first floor, there's like a locker room type of place where they go in for halftime. It's a team room used by the football and lacrosse teams. As the field stands now, it has plywood walls, it's open joist ceiling, it's very bare bones. They're benches that are movable, they're just in the middle of the room. We need new light fixtures, paint. There is a bathroom right off the main room. So the addition would be walls of plywood painted, fixed benches along the exterior walls, storage above the benches, new light fixtures in the ceiling. There'll be renovation of the bathroom and an additional bathroom on the other side of the stairs for officials. So officials can go in and the other door and be away from the team and still have a place to change. This renovation, none of this is structural. All right, this is really, it's a very simple, we're sprucing up the inside and updating electrical and plumbing fixtures. So that's what we're looking at, and we're adding a bathroom on the other side. All the labor and materials are being donated by local businessmen and craftsmen, businesses and craftsmen. The permits will be pulled in licensed electricians and plumbers. I've spoken with the building department. They're gonna waive the permitting fees. It's a town job, so we're looking at good there. And these are the parents of student athletes and longtime Nantucket residents who are gonna do this. These are our guys. It's a great opportunity for us, and it's a testament to the spirit that we have here. It really is. So tonight, I ask you to vote on this because we want to get going as soon as possible. It is on the docket, so if you could pass this through, that would help us get going. And that's really all I have.
Comments, questions? No?
Thank you, Chip.
All right. Thank you.
I do have a question, Chip.
sorry.
Yeah.
That's okay, I was just asking.
No, we have
No,
a-
no questions. So as far as having to procure for the work, how are we working through that? Does it have to be advertised? Do you have to go through state?
It's all volunteer.
So that
we're-
removes all of
yeah,
the need
takes
for
all
that.
that out of it, so we're good to go. We just want to run it by the school committee and want your approval, so we can.
Yeah. That's great.
It's exciting. It should be
Yes.
great. I know Travis and Matt are all about it.
This is a
They're-
co-ed
they're
building though,
clapping.
right? Is it girls
Summer,
lacrosse as
fall,
well as boys
football,
lacrosse?
Boys and girls lacrosse in the spring. Yep.
Beautiful, thank you, Chip.
Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, Chip, I'm sorry, is that a television? Or is it a window?
No, we're gonna put a TV screen up there. We have one of the interactive boards that we're actually taking from the high school or CPS, and we're gonna put it in there.
That's great.
Yep.
Can they work on the speakers as well? Sorry.
That's not, yeah.
That's a different renovation, but yes.
And the lights.
I have an unrelated question.
Lights too.
Yeah, hold on one second, we just have a comment on. Hello, good
Chair
evening.
Approach, School Committee, Charles Douglas, Government Services Manager, NCTV. First time I'm actually speaking to you. Thanks, of course, for your continuing support of NCTV, and for Travis and the entire athletic department facilities for supporting Nantucket Sports Connection. So the second floor of this building, unofficially perhaps, but certainly in Island Cup, every window was in use. That's basically your media floor. So when Chris and I saw this, we had a slight flutter because a couple things are missing from this facade, namely the widow's walk that we put our tripod legs out over the window to rest our camera on. Because if we're stuck inside the building for a lacrosse game, we can't see the end zones either side. Also, and by the way, I mean, just in terms of background, the Island Cup game, if you look at the viewership, about 2,200 folks watched this year's Island Cup. I'm sorry Dr. Leprey's not here, because I know he'd be excited about that. To give you a comparison, that's about the same viewership that we had for the special town meeting. Now, I produced both of those, and I'm an ex-journalist, so I'm equally proud of both children. But seriously, this island's very engaged in what we're doing. And if you compare the Island Cup game, relatively nice weather that day. Look at the football game from September 30th. Kevin Serrano, who just graduated in NHS, and he's working here in IT department these days, he was on camera that day, and he had to wipe the lens about 30 times because we were getting pelted in the face, strong north rain that day. We need more of an overhang if we're going to do some work in this building, and I don't want to get in trouble with HDC or anyone else, but if we can get a couple more feet out over the windows, that would really help shield us from the rain as far as what's coming in when we have cameras out there. So I just wanted to put in a couple words for that. If we have electricians and other certified folks out there, Naturally, I have to say, if we could get internet access, hardwire internet access to this building, that would be a real game changer as well. We had to invest basically $20,000 to get a bonded cellular wireless solution, because literally we were running an Ethernet cable to a nearby house, and then they moved off island. So we had to invest a significant amount of money into a live view system to be able to do HD live streaming through wireless technology. And we'd much rather just plug in like we do over at the gym. And of course, thanks to Jen, who's off island right now, and everyone at IT for helping us do that there. That's right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for your comments. I would, is it on an item, are you willing to vote on this tonight?
We do have it in the agenda.
I didn't know
Yes.
that. Yeah, but sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but I'm just, so how about if we open up for a motion and have it second, and then if there's discussion?
Sure.
Okay, so may I have a motion to approve the field house? Well, actually, this is just to, the vote is just to accept the money, not to accept the program, right? I mean, it's to accept the money.
Through the chair, the vote is to accept the donation of the.
Money.
Full renovation.
For the renovation, yep.
You could change the vote and you can allow them to start the work, but look into doing something else.
That was where I was going, because we haven't had a chance to talk about this, and I'm not looking to hold anything up, but I would like to hear from Travis and Matt on their thoughts on that, because that wasn't,
The whole thing, or?
no, just on the addition.
So,
Could you come to the
with
microphone?
picture,
Could you come to the microphone? Thanks.
So, just real quick, with the picture, that little platform, if you're looking at the field house, all the way to the left, or is it all the way to the right? Wherever NCTV is located, that platform will still, is there right now. It's just not in the picture. So that is there and that will stay. The overhang is something that we're gonna have to discuss. I mean, it's hard to ask these local guys that are donating time and money to add to it, to be like, hey, thank you for doing this, donating $65,000, but can you do more? So that's tricky. But that aside, we are so appreciative of what NCTV has done for football, lacrosse, basketball, hockey. So I'm not saying that I don't think it's a good idea to have the overhang up top, but I don't know. I can't make a decision on it right now. I mean, Chip can probably speak to it better.
When I was talking about the permitting process and all this was non-structural, that the HDC would be involved in anything exterior. So that would delay our process. It might be an idea to do this project that we have pictures for, and then as we move ahead, maybe we can add something on later down the road. But I would hate to hold up everything simply for the case of this. And we could probably work something out, with what we can come up with.
I mean, I wonder if there's something that we can do temporarily.
Yeah,
To put, if we see that rain's coming and there's a football game or a lacrosse game, if we could put something up for the cameras
Yeah.
or something.
Right.
Yeah.
This was new to me, I didn't know anything about this, so I do think that we should go ahead with our project now, and then we will make adjustments, and do what we can to accommodate Jen.
To
I
include the
mean, just based on our
requests.
conversations with Paul too, they are ready to start tonight. They're ready to go. They want to get it done,
Yep.
ready for the spring. So
Yep. No, I mean, I think, his comments are, valid. and
Valid concerns,
And
yes.
certainly, we appreciate Channel 18 and everything that they
Yeah.
do for NCTV, for our coverage, so, okay, so we'll move ahead with a vote, and with the knowledge that you will continue a conversation.
Definitely.
And work with them. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Do we need to add a provision then that,
I don't think so, because what
Okay.
we're really doing is we're voting on the
On the money.
The donation, really.
Right.
But I wanted to have that opportunity for that conversation, because I wasn't aware of
I
additional
disagree,
requests.
if I might. I think we should put some language in there that holds us accountable for ensuring that we are going to actually do some research to figure out if we can add some sort of coverage there. Yes, vote to approve it, but also add language in there as well.
Okay,
So maybe a motion to approve the donation of renovations at the field house from anonymous donors with an estimated cost of $65,000, and also adding a contingency that we will continue to explore some sort of weather shielding for the media on that space.
but it was more than that. It was the internet, it was the Ethernet connection.
sounds like
and
they
that-
already
So
bought
I
the-
think it, was that,
Sounds like they already bought the Ethernet.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a donation, so you can't,
right, we can't make
Right,
a
we can't,
clause
we're
on the
not making,
donation.
gotcha.
Right.
Interesting.
No, so it, again, I think we go back to, we're accepting the money on good faith. We know that there's gonna be the discussions, and we know what additional requests are.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes,
Oh,
So,
Charles has something to say too.
The little platform that
you've got a microphone there, Travis.
the platform that Charles referring to with the cameras, so our wood shop class, Mike Gervin built those for us. So a possible solution could be that Mr. Gervin's wood tech class would do those overhangs for the building. I don't know if that would save a lot of time and probably money too.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure Gerb could come up with something.
If I
And-
may, through the chair, possibly we would add, we could, for further discussion, we can add it as an agenda item to
Yeah.
consider what Charles has voiced.
And through the chair, I appreciate the show of support. Was not looking to hold up any donation to do any of this work. The teams come first for all of us, obviously. So please do what you're going to do. We appreciate the, unofficial nod that this will be included in for future discussions, and that's perfectly good enough for us. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, may I have a motion to accept the donation for $65,000?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
And any other discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. May I have approval, please, for the donation from the Sea Grill for $200 to CPS News Program?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Vote to approve the donation from Blue Beetle for $200 to CPS News Program?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval, please, for the donation from Affordable Rentals, $200 to CPS News Program.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval, please, for the fundraising check to NIS for $1,586.23 from Haywood Photography.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I think the September 17th, or the October 17th got scratched, didn't it?
They're there.
Oh, they are
It's in
there.
November.
Oh, it's in November,
November.
okay. Vote approval, please, for the October 17th meeting minutes.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Was it October I was absent from?
Uh,
My days are now fusing.
yes,
So-
correct.
Okay, so I
Yes.
can't vote on
You
that.
can't vote on it, so we'll have to table that, because there's only
Right.
two of us to, so we'll table that vote. And November is tabled too. So vote to approve the increase of Nantucket Public Schools substitute pay. I think, well, yeah, it's gonna have approval in a second, please, a motion to approve, so we can have discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And a second?
Second.
Yeah,
through
okay.
the chair, it was E under the discussions, where you discussed the amount that is going to be raised to.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I missed that.
If through the chair, I can
Yep,
share a little
you
bit.
can.
So we've done some discussion with the district leadership team, and we feel that the most appropriate amount to raise the rates to would be $180, and this would be a flat rate for any substitute, whether they're substituting for a TA or substituting for a teacher. That will give us the flexibility to move people even within the day to cover teachers' classes, but then potentially become a TA. So that it makes it a clear delineation of what the amount was. Our competitor schools are offering a little bit less than that, so we really need to be able to draw folks in. And so we feel that was important. We did a little research on how much it would cost because in our teacher's contract, the sick day buyback incentive does depend on what the substitute rate is, and that they receive for each day that they buy back up to 15 days per year. They can get that substitute rate for each of those days. In kind of ballparking how many teachers have that ability to buy back that sick time, you have to have over 200 days. So we don't have a huge number of teachers that are taking advantage of that, which will give us basically about a cost of $20,000 to $22,000 for that. So after speaking with the finance director, he feels that we can cover that. So the proposal is, again, $180. Hopefully that will be accepted by you for the vote.
Any discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
May I have approval, please, for the transfers and invoices?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, subcommittee work. Any,
We have an upcoming policy meeting next week,
Yes, we do.
and that's all I have.
okay,
We have an upcoming diversity, equity and inclusion, subcommittee meeting.
is coming up?
Yeah.
Great. Ongoing negotiations for TAs. It's happening, so but things are moving along nicely.
Oh, great.
Which is great. Yeah, I think that's it for updates. Bruno, what are your updates?
We had the National Honor Society induction last Monday. That was in the newspaper, so you probably saw that.
That was nice.
My mom sent it to all our family.
Congratulations.
The Accidentals and Naturals group sang at the tree lighting downtown. The winter sports started this week. Practice started yesterday. December Delight is coming up on December 9th, and the dessert cabaret is December 11th with the Accident and Naturals. Band and Chorus concert is at 6 p.m. on December 13th, and the auditions for the spring musical are coming up. And I also want to talk about the Wi-Fi troubles because we have a lot of them. Like, very, very, very bad. Very bad.
Expand on that a little bit.
So, well, because we actually use our computers for mostly everything,
Mhm.
I have few classes that we actually do written work. So we really need Wi-Fi, and like there's a lot of people in the same place using it at the same time. So like at least 3 times a week we have problems with that, and the teacher just has to change their whole class because they don't have access to that. So I don't know if there's something that can be done about that.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the superintendent to address
To
that.
share. So I can give you a general overview of what's going on, but in our next meeting, which is next Tuesday, we do have a tech director update. So I will make sure that this is done in more detail. The problem that we have is that the internet connection is we are struggling to figure out what the problem is, and we have reached out to, we have all of the highest and most up-to-date switches and internet access points. The problem is there is something going on that we are unable to find. So we now have the highest level of attention from Cisco, which is the company that provides us the internet connection, as well as Progen, looking to figure out what it is that is not allowing the internet to function appropriately. So there's a lot of head scratching going on at this time, and it is really challenging because our techs and our have reached out to high-level support, and the support cannot find, including the company that sold us the internet and the internet switches. So that is the challenge, and that is the great frustration that is going on. And I am so appreciative of the teachers and the administrators that are dealing with this on a daily basis, because every day is different, and we don't know. We hope that there'll be internet connection, and we do not understand what the situation is. I spoke today with Jennifer Erickson and said, what about a complete rewire? And she said that has nothing to do with it. So we have got to figure out, and we're asking Cisco Systems to figure out why their high-end equipment is not working for us. And so I apologize to you and your classmates and your friends, but this is something that we are not sure why it is happening, and we're trying very hard to fix it. And because the frustration is global, we're all
Right.
really, really challenged by it.
Yeah,
But thank you for bringing it up.
Of course.
I'm wondering if we get to a point where we have to relocate some of the students, if there's, testing or anything that's happening that has to be online, and you don't have the confidence that the Wi-Fi would be stable enough for whatever, I don't know what it could be, but
Yep.
maybe we could have a conversation with the Boys and Girls Club, or maybe our house could host classes over there. I don't know.
We
but-
have thought about all of that, and we need to consider all of the options if internet continues to be a challenge for us coming up in the following months, especially March. We have to have everything ready. Actually, we really need to have everything ready by Access, which is happening in January.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't, then we are going to have to figure out a plan B.
Right.
So they're working daily on it, and again, it is now out of our hands and into the manufacturer's hands, and they do not understand what's going on. So there are a couple of things that are again beyond my knowledge of technology that can be shared, and I'm sure Jennifer can do that in our next meeting on Tuesday next week. So I'll make sure she talks to that.
And maybe we could just keep a placeholder in our thoughts of reaching out to some of our partners that we worked with during COVID, in case, if you say by January, we're going to be gone for a week and a half in December, so you don't want to come back and still have that issue.
So one of the struggles that we have is sometimes there are tests being done at all hours of the day, including the night, and often everything looks perfect as you go into the evening when no one is online.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, when everyone tries to get online at between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning, that's when things do not function. And so they're trying to figure out this conundrum as to why our system is not functioning appropriately. So,
Not good.
sorry.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your patience.
Mhm.
Thanks to teachers and students. Where are we on?
I do have one
next
question
agenda?
for
Yes.
Bruno. And the spring musical is, do we know the name of it?
I am not sure. I don't think we have.
Do you know, Mandy?
She did this to you last time, didn't she?
Yes, I think I do know.
Of course I know, I'm just not sure if I'm allowed to say.
All right.
You have to-
It's
you
not
have
my
to be
story to
patient.
tell.
But they've asked school committee to participate in the play, so we're all, no, just kidding. We all have a part.
Cast.
Singing
Cast.
part.
That's
yeah,
all I care
cast,
about.
yes.
I'll be backstage.
Agenda for the next meeting, which is December 5th.
Yes.
We'll be reviewing federal grants, student success program. Is that with Andrew Vaselli?
I hope
Or
so.
is that-
It is always, there's always a quick turnaround between this meeting and the next, and my hope is that Mr. Viselli and some of his students will be able to join us, as well as Veritas. If that doesn't happen, we will move those meetings to future meetings, whether it's, move those presentations to future meetings.
Mhm.
And then clearly there'll be a healthy technology update.
Okay.
So.
I have a question.
Yes.
Still have a question. I'm curious, when we talked about exploring some grant opportunities that are coming down through the town, are we looking into that wind offset grant? Okay, great. Okay. So there's been lots of buzz about that, so I'd love to see us at least get a portion of that or something.
Just finally, I also got to attend the guest reader day, which was lovely. I was invited to NIS and NES, so I got to read to 5th grade and pre-K, and it was fabulous. It is really one of my favorite days of my year. Yours too.
I also read at NES. So fun. I got to read 2 books. I really maximized my time there.
It's just wonderful, and also for us to get in.
I was invited and I was so sick I didn't have a voice.
Oh,
I was so heartbroken. Like, not the kids. I don't want to disappoint the kids. Like, I can do it. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, I was like, there's nothing.
but it's wonderful to get a chance to be in the classroom and see the kiddos and
So
and
great.
just- and they're just so sweet.
Appreciative and yeah.
And then, on a sadder note, but it was just typical of Nantucket's community, attended Kate Hickson's memorial service. Saw you there, Mandy, and it was a really wonderful showing of the whole community. It was, school and restaurants and old Nantucketers, young Nantucketers, but she would have been embarrassed, but it was a wonderful send-off for Kate. So. All right, well, with no other comments, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Thank you all. That's right, I'd forgotten that we have back-to-back, well, not back-to-back, but
Yeah, next
Yeah,
week
quick.
too. It is so